Someone is talking to you. Their lips are moving. You're nodding. But your mind has already left the room. And the strangest part isn't that you disappeared. It's that a part of you knew you were leaving and didn't stop it. Psychology has a name for this quiet vanishing act, and what it reveals about you is far stranger than most people realize. Because zoning out isn't laziness, it isn't rudeness, it isn't even really about the person in front of you. It's a signal from a part of the brain most people don't even know exists. Neuroscientists call it the default mode network, and it activates the moment your attention slips away from the outside world. It's the network that turns on when you daydream, when you replay old memories, when you rehearse conversations that will never happen. And here's what most people never realize. Your brain spends nearly half of your waking life inside this hidden world. Half of your life spent somewhere else. But that's only part of the story. Because the people who zone out most often aren't the ones who are bored. They're often the ones who feel the most. Researchers studying attention have noticed something quietly unsettling. The mind wanders most when the emotional load is heaviest. So when you drift away mid-conversation, it isn't always because the topic is dull. Sometimes it's because something inside you is quietly overwhelmed. Your brain is doing what it was designed to do. It's protecting you by looking inward when the outside becomes too much. But there's another layer to this, and it's the one most people miss. Zoning out isn't just an escape. It's often the brain's way of solving something it hasn't finished thinking about. Psychologists call these unfinished thoughts open loops, unresolved feelings, unanswered questions, conversations that ended before they were done. And your mind, no matter how polite you try to be, cannot stop searching for the endings. So while your friend is describing their weekend, a quieter part of you is finishing an argument from 3 years ago. Most people never realize what happens next, because the more often you zone out, the more your brain begins to prefer it. Neuroscience shows that the pathways we use most become the pathways we default to. Attention, like a muscle, weakens when it isn't used. So the person who drifts away once tends to drift away again, and again, until drifting becomes the way they live. But here's where it gets stranger. Because the same mental drift that steals your attention is also the source of your creativity. The default mode network isn't just where your mind escapes. It's where your best ideas are quietly born. Every insight you've ever had in the shower. Every solution that arrived while you were washing dishes. All of it came from the same place you accidentally visit mid-conversation. So the same trait that makes you seem distracted is often the trait that makes you deeply thoughtful. But that's only part of it. Because there's a shadow side to this, and it's something almost nobody talks about. When zoning out becomes a habit, it stops being a resting place and starts becoming a hiding place, a quiet way to be present without being reachable, a way to nod without hearing, a way to stay in the room without truly staying. And the people who love you begin to feel it, even if they can't explain what's missing. Because presence isn't just about being there. It's about being reachable. And this is where psychology begins to whisper something uncomfortable. That chronic zoning out is sometimes tied to something deeper. Old stress, old grief, old patterns of self-protection formed long before you knew you were forming them. For some, it began in a childhood home where staying too present meant staying too vulnerable. For others, it began in relationships where being fully attentive felt exhausting, unsafe, or unappreciated. And so the mind learned a quiet lesson, that leaving, even for a moment, feels safer than staying. But the real reason is much deeper, because underneath the zoning out, there is almost always a longing. A quiet wish for a conversation that finally feels like home. A conversation where you don't have to perform, don't have to translate yourself, don't have to make yourself smaller to be understood. And until the mind finds that kind of conversation, it will keep drifting. Not because you don't care, but because a part of you is still searching. So the next time you catch yourself vanishing mid-sentence, try not to judge it too harshly. That quiet drifting is not a flaw in you. It's a message from you. A message asking to be listened to first before you can fully listen to anyone else. Because the people who zone out the most are often the ones who have been overlooked the longest, even by themselves. And maybe the most healing thing isn't learning to stay present with others. Maybe it's learning to stay present with yourself first. So here's the question worth sitting with tonight. When your mind drifts mid-conversation, where does it actually go? And who is waiting for you there? If this video quietly describes something you've never been able to explain, take a moment to share your thoughts in the comments. Someone else needs to read them. And if this is the kind of quiet, honest psychology you've been searching for, consider subscribing. Not for us. For the version of you who is finally ready to be understood. Because in the next documentary, we're going somewhere even deeper. Into the minds of people who feel most alone in the middle of a crowded room. And what it reveals about them might change the way you see yourself forever.